Yes, sir. Welcome back to another Trap or Die film session. I'm your Trap or Die podcast, Mual. And on this episode, let's talk a little bit about the rookie, man, Brandon Coleman. This is a person who missed last week due to a concussion, a tough game against the Chicago Bears. But he had his first full-time start against the New York Giants, man. A defense who was top in the league in sacks, top in the league in pressures. Primary matchup against Brian Burns, who was top 10 in pressures and sacks in the NFL. How did your boy do? Let's go ahead and take a look at his growth to this point. Take a look at some reps against Brian Burns. See where he's at as a player. Trap or Die film session right now. So let's start out early in the game. One of the biggest things for Brian that he had issues with Brandon Coleman all day was just his actual frame. His arm length was a problem. The ability to even just latch on and sustain the block. If you can kind of notice when he gets into his pass set right here, all right, at this point where you're able to lock out like that and you have good grip strength, all you have to do is move your feet, mirror the defender's rush path, and just move with him. And you'll be able to stalemate a rush. Early on in the game, simple rep, but we're talking about a person who is going up against Brian in a situation where you don't have any chip help. It's just one-on-one. Another situation is Brandon utilizing a vertical pass set now, right? So you got your angle or a slight angle that he used in his first rep. Now we're talking about a vertical pass set where he's taking a deeper drop in a sense. Now you kind of see a different situation, but different pass set, but the same result, right? That lockout. Now he does get away with a slight hold when Jaden cuts upfield. But you see the feet doesn't stop moving, right? He has a good base. His base is wide enough so his feet doesn't get crossed. And typically he does well when the fight is close quarters versus like a little bit more space. And you'll see what I mean in one of these plays. But you see his base, really good base. His hand placement, the independent hand usage, right? To get his hands in the right spot. If you notice where he starts out, his right hand is outside the elbow, and then he works his hands to get to the shoulder pads and lock out. Slight hold again, but you know, you get away with some. So this is what I mean sometimes when he gets his feet crossed a little bit, right? So he has a little bit more space he has to deal with, but you see how quickly he got out there? Like, that's elite footwork for an offensive tackle. Athletic guy. You see how quick he gets out there. Run it again. You get your ankle set. Right, quickly cuts off the path for Brian Burns. Brian doesn't even have enough time to get around because Brandon wins the half man relationship, where he meets him, he cuts off his path, his rush path. Right, he doesn't have a two-way go. He can only work the edge of the pocket. But when I mean cross his feet, is you'll see it right here. Now this doesn't get him in trouble on this play at all. And also, by the way, we're showing one game, right? But I want to kind of plant some seeds in terms of like some of the things that he deals with throughout the course of a season, because when we spin the block down the line and we talk about Brandon Coleman and we go through another film session for his whole season, you'll see some of the things that he dealt with and how he overcame them, if he did overcome them, or some of the things that he's still struggling with. But crossing your feet, sometimes you just get off balance and you lose your power and your stability that you have when you're able to slide laterally, right? But this one doesn't get him in trouble. He has a really good initial rep, and this is a beautiful rep, honestly. All right, so now in this one, you get a different situation from Brian right now. Brian has tried to work the speed, and sometimes that speed is just not working out for him, right? He's been dealing with chip help a good portion of times. Washington has been changing up on him. Brandon is he's getting his one-on-ones, but Brandon is holding his own for the most part, right? This moment, Brian tries to convert speed. Brandon. Brian tries to convert speed to power, and now you get a good anchor set from Brandon Coleman. The good news is the ball is out really quickly, so it helps Brandon in this moment, but you see him able to establish himself, get his feet in the ground, and handle the power rush attempt or speed to power rush attempt from Brian Burns, right? So another good rep, dropping in your vertical set. Right, he's changed it up. He's went to angles. He went to verticals, and he's also done some jump sets as well. All right, so this is the last one in pass pro that I just want to kind of highlight. Honestly, throughout the day, like I said, I think the arm length and just his overall frame gave Brian Burns problems. He made Brian is a good player, right? It just made, like, Brian had some moments where he was visibly upset looking at the refs like, oh, what's going on? Like, he was getting strapped so good he thought it was holding. I mean, well, one of them was, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, good rep again from Brandon in this moment, right? Gets the hands on quick, establishes the engagement, moves laterally, right? Good base. Runs with the defender, right? And has the grip strength to keep that guy in his grasp and controlling the engagement in that manner. All right, so the last thing in pass pro that I want to show before we get into the run game is his stunt processing. Brandon, throughout the season, has had some issues, mainly early on, right? As the season went on, he started picking things up, but this one was a really good rep. And the way he played it was a little bit different because the relationship between Allegretti and Coleman on this play specifically, right? You can see where his eyes are. His eyes is on his job, right? Brian Burns on the outside. But as soon as he's able to see Burns cut inside, Allegretti and Coleman are on the same page in terms of overtaking responsibilities. So Coleman is easily able to overtake 94 on the outside rush. Now, 94 doesn't necessarily do a good job at doing anything except for just taking a lane. You would imagine you want your crasher to be a little bit more physical to help the looper get a better angle or a better advantage on the one-on-one. But you see him able to get his head back to the right position, Coleman, and then overtake 94 on the line game that they're playing. It's a really good rep from Brandon. Again, we're talking about situations where he's able to process things post snap, and that's something that's really good for him. So one thing, now he did get one later in the game as we go through some of the run fits, but sometimes Brandon can find himself in situations where he is not necessarily the most controlled or has the proper tempo as he goes to the second level as a climber, right? And in this moment, he's uncovered, right? Or essentially uncovered in the direction in which he's going. And the angle that he takes to that second level defender just gets him out of position already. So you see he's the backside lineman and he's responsible for cutting off the weak side linebacker. Unable to get him, and his 58 is able to make a play on the ball carrier. So again, it's about taking like the right angle, understanding your angle. You see him kind of running directly at him in a sense, right? And the defender beats him there. One rep late in the game was for Chris Rodriguez, 17-yard run. You kind of see that alignment right here. You get a shade nose guard or nose tech, zero tech, and you got a strong side 3 technique, right? So that's all on, that's 97, that's 93. So when you're running strong side and you're the backside lineman, this is the angle that I was talking about where he has the better rep later in the game. He gets out there quicker, he takes a better angle, and he puts 58 on his ass. Oh, this ain't the play. He put him on his ass. But he gets him out the way. It's another play where he puts him on his ass. This ain't it. And you get Chris going for 17 yards. That's an excellent play from Coleman. Taking the right angle this time. You see the acceleration to make sure that he gets to his man. Really good, impressive rep from Coleman. Let's go to another situation where like his mental toughness is on display, right? This is a 4th and 1. A mental toughness meaning like how do you execute in those critical situations? Like are you locked in mentally? So let's go ahead and run it. And I mean it's 4th and 1. You get like 3 yards, but you get your running back running off the lane that you create, essentially, right? You get 96. You're able to have like the impressive functional strength, right? To just shove him, displace him out of your gap, right? You get him completely out of the way. And it's just a one-on-one with the linebacker. You ain't responsible for the linebacker. We're focusing on Brandon, right? Get him out the way, move him, seal the gap. You get a first down. And we move the sticks. All right, so now this one was I think this was a Jaden keeper. But this was also a read option look, I think. So for this play, you see Brandon as a puller, and you see him create the lane, right? He's simulating the run, but this is all important because in the same instance in which you see this rep, right? If Eckler was to keep the ball, he creates the lane for him. This is all important because they're still simulating the run. So this is where you get a good example of a rep, him as a puller. You see slight acceleration. You're able to see him self-locate defenders, right? Like he's not necessarily lost when he gets around the edge and looking for somebody or missing the assignment or an assignment because he's uncomfortable in the way in which he's moving, right? He's very comfortable. He's able to find somebody quickly, get a helmet on him, clear the space. And we show this angle because you see the room that Eckler would have to run or have to run because of the space that Brandon Coleman created. A good rep from Brandon. Once again, pulling athletically. You see his mobility, his movements, and things like that. Now, this part pops up from time to time when he faces good rushers. And this happens to a lot of linemen, so it's not a huge deal, but it's something to pay attention to. Sometimes he shoots his hands a little bit too quickly. Like he shows them, like right in this moment, look where his hands are. If you see it, obviously, like if you see it, you see it. But what happens after is the issue. So successful edge defenders and edge rushers are able to control the wrist of offensive linemen. I mean, obviously, if you control the wrist, they have no leverage. Offensive linemen have no leverage, and you can essentially, whichever toolbox you have or whatever tools you have in your toolbox, you can use that to shed the block, disengage, and make a play. But again, like if you're watching it, Brandon Coleman has no leverage. His wrists are being controlled by Brian Burns. And that's just one of the things that happens when you can show your wrist and show your hands too soon, as opposed to shooting them at the right time. Or I don't know the exact word, but like showing them and just faking it, like baiting. Why couldn't I think of baiting? But baiting your hands and showing them so you can get them to shoot and you can take advantage of the engagement like that. So that's kind of some things that you would have to see Brandon grow in terms of like his savviness and things like that. But overall, it's still a good game and good player in terms of his development nonetheless. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for this film session. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We definitely appreciate you sticking all the way through for this one. Let us know your comments on Brandon Coleman in the comment section as well. This is a person, in my opinion, who I think, first off, for his first game back since missing 1 week due to a concussion, honestly, he had his work cut out for him. And there's never really any games that Washington goes into where they're going to let their tackles go into a matchup just purely one-on-one every single rep. So that's very smart by them. There is nothing wrong with that at all. Everybody doesn't have a Trent Williams, so you shouldn't expect Trent Williams play from anybody. Any offensive coordinators in the past who Washington has had plenty of, where they don't give them that much chip help, they just expect them to do their business out there all by themselves. You know, they weren't playing that smart. But point being, Brandon Coleman, he's in a situation where he's getting chip help, but he's also getting the one-on-ones that showcases his ability 9 games in as a rookie. So I think he's developing. You see his athletic ability in his pass sets. You see his athletic ability in terms of a puller and climbing to second levels. He has to be mindful of like the angles that he takes in terms of his own personal development. He can get better at that. That's just going to take some coaching and just some mental reps and things like that. Being able to identify who's faster, who's not that fast, like understanding that type of thing like that. And then as a pass protector, for the most part, you know, he's getting a little bit more comfortable back there. Crossing his feet a little bit still too much. But, you know, when you run into some of those more dominant pass rushers, that's where you're going to come into some problems. TJ Watt is up next. Who knows when Micah Parsons is coming back? But, you know, you're going to get some of those situations where, you know, you can't afford to have the technical flaws in your game because it can expose too much. But overall, again, he's developing. He's quick, he's athletic, and his hand usage is also a good thing as well. So as long as he keeps working on his craft, marrying his lower body with his upper body, he's in good shape. We'll spend a block on Brandon Coleman down the season, but so far, he has developed well. But that's going to wrap it up for us. Again, if you like, hit that like button. And yeah, till next time. Peace. Chop it down. Chop.
trap or die, trap or die, trap or die, you gon' trap or die. Trap or die, trap or die, trap or die, you gon' trap or die. Damn, set, watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive, this is trap or dive.